Today, we become legends.
As more and more gods are making their way into Smite 2, it got me wondering, what are some of the craziest ways Smite 1 gods could benefit from or interact with new mechanics, systems, or items in Smite 2 that could make them really strong in their move to the sequel? Quick disclaimer that I won't be including any speculations on gods getting strength or in-scaling, as you could make that argument for literally any god and we'd be here all day in that case. But there are, of course, certain gods from Smite 1 that would benefit in major ways from having strength or in-scaling added to their kit that they couldn't do in Smite 1. But without further ado, let's jump in. First up is a simple and obvious one, but any magical auto-attacking gods from Smite 1 will get an inherent buff going into Smite 2 as they can now use crit. We've seen this from Sol as the first and so far only magical ADC from Smite 1 added to the sequel, but gods like Kronos will benefit a lot from this too. Olarun is also an interesting one in two ways. He has a built-in increase to his magical power contribution to basic attacks in Smite 1, which will likely be kept in Smite 2 as intelligence contribution, but also, of course, Olarun can already crit in Smite 1 through his unique passive, so it'll be interesting to see what direction they go with that in Smite 2. Will he get extra crit damage instead? Will all of his abilities be able to crit, not just his one, or will they rework it entirely? Freya is another that people often cite as being very scary to give crit to as she moves over, but actually she wouldn't even be that good with it because a large portion of Freya's auto attack damage comes from Pulse and Irradiate, not her actual basic attacks. So unless they let those abilities crit in Smite 2 as well, it won't actually be that good on her. Alquang is similar. A lot of his auto attacking shred actually comes from his 2, which is ability damage, and while his autos do hit decently hard, it's nothing too insane, and I don't think giving him crit access would break him at all. Akakkojira could be a potentially interesting one in this regard, as he has permanent AoE basic attacks that don't benefit from attack speed, so crit and low attack speed options like Rage and Deathrayer could be an option there for a funny damage build, though that's probably more of a semi-viable fun thing like crit Ymir and not something that would actually dominate. I guess you could throw Sylvanas, Jormungandr, Atlas, Fafnir, and Maui in this bucket as well in terms of AoE basic attacking guardians that could be funny with crit but are almost certainly a meme. Raijin could also be semi-interesting due to his wider basic attacks making them easier to hit and reducing his ability cooldowns for every basic attack. And finally, Zhonghui could be fairly legit in this regard and probably one of the most powerful magical crit gods in the game, due to his Book of Demons passively giving him an extra basic attack that hits for 50% damage. This isn't ability damage and so could crit and scales directly off his basic attack damage, so he could effectively hit for 1.5 times the normal amount of crit damage that any other god could with the same build. Definitely something interesting there. But moving on from a larger, broader topic, let's talk about a few specific ways that gods might be able to benefit from their move to Smite 2. Camos is one I'm genuinely terrified of making the move. We all know the insane healing this guy can put out in Smite 1 with a Soul Eater in his build, and in Smite 2, every lifesteal item is Soul Eater effectively, so I would imagine lifesteal maxing on this guy will be pretty scary. In Smite 1, he just had his base kit heals and a 15% ability lifesteal from Soul Eater. In Smite 2, he could easily get upwards of 60% ability lifesteal in his build, which is honestly terrifying. There are plenty of other gods that will benefit from this game-wide change for sure, such as Cleaner, Wukong, and Set, but Karma is the most scary one for sure. And of course, anti-heal still exists to shut this down, but anti-heal existed in Smite 1 and this guy was still pretty scary there. Next up is Certa, and specifically his 1, which benefits in a couple of ways going into Smite 2. The most obvious one is that CDR is uncapped in Smite 2, allowing this ability to reach potentially much lower cooldowns than in Smite 1, which scales exponentially on how many stacks he can realistically get in a single match. In Smite 1, this capped out at 6 seconds for its base cooldown with max CDR. In Smite 2 though, you could potentially get this as low as 4 or 5 seconds if you really wanted to, which at 4 seconds effectively means 33% more stacks if you're optimizing. Games also generally go a bit longer in Smite 2 than Smite 1, which helps this out as well, and with the recent tank changes, they're making a concerted effort to not give tanks much access to items that give them any damage, which could allow Certa to be incredibly threatening compared to other tanks while being just as tanky as they are, providing he can stack this up throughout the match. A quick, somewhat related one here is Karon, who much like Certa has, quote, infinite scaling in his kit, this time with max health. Yes, it's not actually infinite, but in an average length game, it is infinite in practice. This gives an absolute maximum of 998 bonus max health, which in Smite 2 is more valuable due to the recent shift on focusing more on max health over protections for tank builds. In Smite 2, he can leverage that health through items like Circe's Hexstone or Phoenix Feather as well, but of course, this is a double-edged sword as it makes him even more vulnerable to the buffed Kin Size and Soul Reaver. Another quick one here for Bakasura, as he is, of course, the king of invades, and invades are more viable in in Smite 2 than they were in Smite 1 thanks to the removal of the Invader's Curse and the Infamy system, allowing you to deny enemy buff level ups by invading them. A Bako just power farming and eating all your buff camps, which you can also stack on top of each other now, will be pretty scary. On a similar note, Tiamat will also be interesting in this regard. She has always been unique in Smite 1 in that she's the only god that can hold multiple primary jungle buffs at once, but everyone can do that in Smite 2. She will still benefit though, as she can, for example, consume her own red buff and let her jungler take red on top of their speed, or consume the rotating buff camps and also let her support take those buffs, which could be interesting. This is speculation, but would she also maybe make camps drop multiple consumables like 2 Eyes of the Jungle from the Scorpion camp? Could be cool, maybe. A pretty obvious one here, but it's going to be exciting to see what they do with Ratatosa in Smite 2, as obviously his main gimmick is his 4 Acorns that dramatically change his playstyle based on which one he chooses. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's basically an aspect built into his kit, so it makes me wonder what they might do with his own aspect once he gets one. They could also potentially change some or all of his Acorns in the move to Smite 2, maybe even making 1 or 2 of them into active items, which could be interesting. I've always liked the idea of 1 active and 1 passive tank Acorn, as well as 1 active and 1 passive damage Acorn, but only time will tell what they do with Rat. Arachnne could be interesting as well. It's not really anything new, but Arachnne might have some interesting starts she could do in Conquest, where she puts down webs to help an ally clear a buff. Maybe your mid could start a red buff instead of in lane if they have an Arachnne. Maybe she can get some interesting breakpoints where she webs a bunch of buffs and hits level 2 way before the enemy jungler can and does some invades or something. Always interesting stuff to see what Arachnne can do with her webs at game start, and Smite 2 will be a whole new can of worms in that regard. On a similar note, again, it's pretty obvious, but Hu Yi players will have to explore the map in detail when he releases to find the new best triple bounce spots. I highly doubt they designed the Smite 2 map geometry around Hu Yi existing. I mean, they probably didn't do that in Smite 1 either, but there could definitely be some potentially disgusting triple bounce spots and fast buff camp clear setups that Hu Yi mains will have to figure out when he makes the move. I know I didn't want to mention scaling in this video, but that could go even more insane if Hu Yi gets any in-scaling on his one. This is one that could definitely change, but if Kusenbo was added to Smite 2 right now, he would definitely be terrifying with Hide of the Nemean Lion. That plus his 2 is a combined 75% pre-mitigation damage reflex, easily enough to one-shot a carry if they're not paying attention. Helm of Darkness Hebo is a quick one that I think will be funny on launch as well. Whether it will be genuinely meta or not is another question, but being able to invis into the enemy backline to 3 and ult someone for an insta-kill seems like it might be at the very least viable, if not pretty broken. There are probably plenty of other gods that could benefit from Helm of Darkness as well, but Hebo was the first one that came to mind. A non-gameplay related one as well that would be incredibly funny is the size up items on Cthulhu. Press his ult, Dreamer's Idol, and Avatar's Parashu and watch every player in the match crash their game most likely. They honestly might have to make these items incompatible with his ultimate, because even a passive boosted Hercules with these 2 items active is the size of a Titan. I can't even imagine how wild an ulting Cthulhu with these would be. Same goes for Jormungandr while ulting too, I guess. But anyway, that's just some of the more interesting interactions that some Smite 1 gods yet to make the move could have as they come into Smite 2. Of course, I probably only scratched the surface with this video, so if you've got any other cool interactions, then definitely leave them in the comments down below. And if they're especially juicy, I might even heart the comment or potentially use them in a sequel to this video if there's enough. But yeah, catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.